They told you to specialize, pick one lane, pick one identity, pick one skill, stay there for the next 20 years and call it discipline. But look closer. For many people, specialization is not mastery. It is fear wearing a respectable mask. They do not stay in one lane because they are focused. They stay there because the unknown makes them feel stupid. They protect the identity they already understand, even if that identity is too small for the life they claim to want. Machiavelli understood something brutal. A man who can only see one side of reality is vulnerable to the side he cannot see. The man who only understands force gets destroyed by strategy. The man who only understands logic gets destroyed by emotion. The man who only understands one field becomes blind the moment life gives him a problem from another one. By the end of this video, you will learn 7 principles to build a rare mind. A mind with depth, range, pattern recognition, strategic learning, and multiple lenses. Not a mind filled with random facts. A mind people cannot easily predict. Before we begin, drop this affirmation in the comments. My mind has no ceiling. Number 1, destroy the identity that keeps you small. The most dangerous prison is the one you call your personality. I'm not a math person. I'm not creative. I'm not good with people. I don't understand business. I'm just not built for that. These sentences sound harmless. They are not harmless. They are mental cages. And the ugliest part is this. Most people build the cage themselves, then spend years defending it. The label protects you from looking weak, but it also guarantees you stay weak in that area. That is not self-knowledge. That is self-protection. Machiavelli studied people through masks. He understood that people rarely chase truth directly. They protect image first. They would rather defend a weak story about themselves than confront the freedom that comes after destroying it. Imagine this. A man says, "I'm just not a leader." So he avoids responsibility. He avoids hard conversations. He avoids decisions. Then 10 years later, he looks at his life and says, "See, I was never leadership material." No. He trained himself into that conclusion. The old identity creates the evidence it later uses to justify itself. That is how people become trapped. A rare mind begins with a different statement. I am someone who learns. That sentence changes everything. It does not make you instantly skilled. It does not make you brilliant overnight. But it removes the ceiling. It tells your nervous system that being bad at something is not a threat to your worth. It is just the entry fee. Adults hate being beginners because beginner mode exposes them. They want competence without discomfort. They want range without humiliation. That is childish. A strategist pays the cost. He asks the basic question. He studies the unfamiliar field. He looks ignorant for a season, so he does not remain limited for a lifetime. Number 2, build depth without losing range. A rare mind is not someone who knows a little about everything. That is not intelligence. That is trivia. A person who collects shallow facts can sound interesting for 30 seconds. Then the moment the conversation gets serious, the weakness appears. He knows names, but not mechanisms. He knows quotes, but not principles. He knows vocabulary, but cannot solve problems. Do not confuse breadth with noise. A dangerous mind has structure. It has depth in one direction and range across several others. Think of the letter T. The vertical line is your deep domain, the field where you build real authority, the place where your understanding is strong enough that people come to you for answers. The horizontal line is your range, other fields where you build useful competence, not mastery in everything. That is ego fantasy, but enough understanding to borrow tools, see patterns, and avoid being trapped inside one framework. Depth gives you authority. Range gives you options. You need both. Machiavelli understood this through power. A ruler who only knew war could be defeated by diplomacy. A ruler who only knew charm could be crushed by force. Survival belonged to the ruler who understood multiple realities at once. Force, fear, loyalty, timing, appearances, incentives, deception, public perception, private motives. That is not random knowledge. That is strategic range. Psychologically, narrow expertise creates blind spots. When you become too attached to one model of the world, your brain starts forcing every problem through that model. A lawyer sees contracts, a doctor sees disease, a marketer sees attention, a soldier sees threat. Each lens has value, each lens is incomplete. Here's what most people never notice. The specialist is strongest when the problem fits his field, but when the problem changes shape, his confidence can become his weakness. He keeps applying the same tool because that tool made him successful before. That is how competence becomes rigidity. Number 3, collect principles, not random facts. Facts are cheap, principles are rare. Most people collect information the way children collect shiny objects. A quote here, a statistic there. They gather pieces, but nothing connects. Their mind becomes a storage room, not a weapon. A rare mind does something different. It extracts the principle underneath the fact. A fact tells you what happened once. A principle tells you what keeps happening. That is power. Machiavelli did not become dangerous because he memorized events. He became dangerous because he studied the forces beneath them. He watched rulers, soldiers, citizens, enemies, and allies. Then he asked, what pattern governs their behavior? Generosity was not just generosity. It could be a tool for loyalty. Cruelty was not just cruelty. It could be a tool for fear. Mercy was not just morality. It could be strategy, weakness, or timing depending on the situation. He was not collecting stories. He was extracting operating laws. Psychologically, pattern recognition is one of the highest forms of intelligence. Number 4, choose knowledge like a strategist. Curiosity without direction can waste your life. That sounds harsh because people romanticize curiosity. They think wanting to learn everything means they are growing. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it means they are avoiding the hard decision of choosing what actually matters. A rare mind does something different. It studies for leverage. Before entering a new field, ask, what will this give me? Will it sharpen my main skill? Will it solve a real problem? Will it open a door that stays closed to others? Will it multiply the value of what I already know? If the answer is no, maybe it is entertainment wearing the costume of education. Number 5, see every problem through multiple lenses. A predictable person uses one lens for everything. That is why he is easy to manipulate. He sees conflict only emotionally. He sees business only financially. He sees relationships only romantically. He sees criticism only as attack. He sees silence only as rejection. One lens, one interpretation, one trap. A rare mind refuses to trust the first interpretation. It rotates the problem. It walks around it. It asks what the emotional lens reveals, what the strategic lens reveals, what the historical lens reveals, what the systems lens reveals. That is how the hidden structure appears. Number 6, make knowledge compound over time. A rare mind is not built in one weekend. Stop looking for the dramatic moment. The dramatic moment is usually fake. Real transformation is slow, quiet, repetitive, and invisible for longer than weak people can tolerate. Knowledge compounds like money. One idea connects to another. That connection becomes a model. That model helps you understand a harder problem. That harder problem pushes you into another field. Then suddenly, years later, you see what others miss instantly. They call you gifted. They did not see the deposits. This is why passive content consumption is weak. You watch 10 videos. You feel stimulated. You say, that was interesting. Then nothing changes because you did not connect it. You did not apply it. You did not turn it into a system. A rare mind learns deliberately. After an idea, it pauses. That pause is where intelligence grows. Revisiting old ideas is not repetition, it is deepening. That is why the same book can be average at 20, useful at 30, and brutal at 40. The book did not change. You did. Machiavelli understood preparation before crisis. The advantage belongs to the person who built quietly while others were comfortable. A rare mind is built before the opportunity. Number 7. Become unpredictable through integration. Unpredictability is not randomness. Random people are not powerful. They are unstable. Real unpredictability comes from integration. It means you have so many connected lenses, principles, and capabilities that people cannot reduce you to one pattern. They expect you to respond emotionally. You respond strategically. They expect you to stay in your lane. You borrow from another field. They expect you to argue. You ask a question. They expect you to chase approval. You stay silent. They expect the old version, but the old version is gone. This is where the rare mind becomes dangerous, not because it is aggressive, because it is difficult to read. Machiavelli understood that predictability creates vulnerability. When enemies know your pattern, they can prepare for it. When people know exactly what provokes you, they can move you without touching you. A rare mind protects itself by refusing to be one-dimensional. It thinks in layers, it speaks with timing, it acts from principles, it studies people without becoming loud about it. Psychologically, unpredictability disrupts manipulation. Manipulators rely on expected reactions. If guilt always works, they use guilt. If pressure always works, they use urgency. But when your responses become controlled and varied, the old tools stop working. They do not know whether you will speak, leave, or detach. That uncertainty protects you. Now comes the dangerous part. Some of you are predictable because your pain is visible. Your need for approval is visible. Your fear of being disliked is visible. Your insecurity is visible. Your hunger for attention is visible. Your emotional buttons are visible. You reveal. You reveal through explaining too much. You reveal through reacting too fast. You reveal through chasing closure. You reveal through needing people to understand you. You reveal through asking for permission to become bigger. A rare mind is not born. It is built. You destroy the identity that keeps you small. You build depth without losing range. You collect principles instead of random facts. You choose knowledge like a strategist. You see problems through multiple lenses. You make learning compound over time. And then you integrate it until nobody can predict you from one angle. This is not motivation. Motivation tells you to feel inspired. Identity replacement tells you to become the kind of person who no longer fits inside the old mental cage. The old identity was narrow. The new identity learns. The old identity protected ego. The new identity pays the price of being a beginner. The old identity collected facts. The new identity extracts principles. The old identity reacted from one lens. The new identity rotates the whole problem. Machiavelli does not teach you to become cruel. He teaches you to stop being naive. Stoicism does not teach you to become cold. It teaches you to stop letting one emotion control the entire map. So now you decide, will you keep living as one label, one job title, one narrow thinker, one predictable reaction? Or will you build a mind so rare that people can no longer place you inside the little box they prepared for you? Like this video if this hits something real. Subscribe for more videos about Machiavelli mindset, mental power, discipline, strategy, self-control, and identity transformation. Share this with someone who is still trapped inside one narrow lane. And drop this final affirmation in the comments. My mind has no ceiling. Remember this. In a world full of average thinkers, your advantage is not knowing more facts. It is connecting what others keep separate.